The mansion smelled of lemon polish and something darker, old money perhaps, or the kind of silence that comes from secrets kept too well. I dragged the heavy vacuum cleaner across marble floors so pristine they reflected the crystal chandeliers above like mirrors, each pass leaving temporary tracks that vanished within seconds. My shoulders ached. My hands were raw from bleach and scrubbing. But I kept moving, kept my head down, kept myself invisible the way I'd learned to do in the 3 weeks since I'd started working here. Just finish the shift, get paid, go home. The mantra had become my lifeline, repeated with each breath, each mechanical movement. I needed this job more than I needed air. The pay was extraordinary, too good, really, which should have been my first warning. But when you're 2 months behind on rent, and the eviction notice is taped to your door like a scarlet letter, you don't ask questions about why a household staff position pays 3 times the market rate. You just show up, work hard, and pray they don't find a reason to let you go. The other staff members didn't talk much. Mrs. Chen, the head housekeeper, communicated primarily in clipped instructions and disapproving glances. The cook, whose name I still didn't know, worked behind a closed kitchen door and emerged only to deliver meals that disappeared into various rooms I wasn't allowed to enter. There were security guards, always security guards, stationed at every entrance, their faces blank, their eyes tracking everything, watching, assessing, judging. I didn't know exactly who owned this place. The staff called him Mr. R. Russo, but always in hushed tones, always with a particular quality to their voices that lived somewhere between respect and fear. I'd never seen him. My shifts were carefully scheduled during hours when the master of the house was apparently away, handling business I suspected had nothing to do with legitimate enterprise. The neighborhood alone told that story. This wasn't just wealth. This was fortress wealth, the kind that came with 12-foot walls, security cameras on every corner, and men in dark suits who carried guns barely concealed beneath expensive jackets. I'd seen enough crime dramas to recognize the signs, but desperation made me willfully blind. I was cleaning the 3rd-floor hallway when I heard it, a sound so soft I almost missed it beneath the vacuum's roar, a whimper. Small and frightened, like a wounded animal, my hand hovered over the power button. I shouldn't investigate. That was rule number 1, delivered by Mrs. Chen on my first day. Keep to your assigned areas. Don't wander. Don't ask questions. Don't interfere. The sound came again, more desperate this time. I turned off the vacuum. The silence that followed felt oppressive, heavy with the weight of broken rules. My heart hammered against my ribs as I followed the sound to a door I'd been explicitly told never to open. A white door with a painted rainbow that seemed jarringly cheerful against the mansion's austere elegance. Another whimper, followed by a crash. My hand was on the doorknob before rational thought could intervene. It turned easily, unlocked, which surprised me, and I pushed it open just enough to see inside. The room was a contradiction. Soft pink walls covered in carefully placed foam padding. Toys organized with military precision on white shelves. A small bed with princess sheets, and no fewer than 7 stuffed animals arranged in a specific order. Everything clean, everything perfect, everything screaming of a child who lived in a beautiful cage. And in the center of it all, a little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, sat on the floor, rocking back and forth with her hands pressed over her ears. Tears streamed down her small face, but she made no sound beyond those occasional whimpers. Around her, scattered puzzle pieces formed a chaotic constellation. The source of the crash I'd heard. She wore a white dress with yellow flowers, pristine except for a small juice stain on the collar. Her dark hair was pulled into 2 neat braids, and her eyes, brown and huge and filled with distress, were fixed on the scattered puzzle pieces with an intensity that made my chest ache. I'd seen this before. Different child, different circumstances, but the same overwhelm, the same silent suffering. "Hey," I said softly, dropping to my knees just inside the doorway, not approaching, not invading her space, just present. "That's really frustrating, isn't it, when things don't go where they're supposed to go?" She didn't acknowledge me, didn't even glance in my direction. But her rocking slowed incrementally. "I hate when that happens," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. "When I'm trying to do something and it all falls apart. Makes my brain feel too loud, you know? Like there's static where thoughts should be. Her hands lowered slightly from her ears. I could leave now. Should leave now. This wasn't my business, wasn't my place, wasn't my child to comfort, but something in the deliberate arrangement of those toys, in the careful organization of a space designed to contain chaos, spoke to me in a language I understood too well. My little brother had been autistic, before the accident. Before I'd lost him and my parents in one terrible night of twisted metal and shattered glass. "Can I tell you a secret?" I asked, settling more comfortably onto the floor, still maintaining distance. I like puzzles too, but sometimes my hands don't cooperate. Sometimes I drop things, and then I get upset, and then I drop more things. It's like a mean cycle. The rocking stopped entirely. She wasn't looking at me. Her eyes remained fixed on those scattered pieces. But she was listening. I could tell by the slight tilt of her head, the way her breathing had started to even out. "Would it be okay if I sat here while you fix it?" I asked. "I won't touch anything. I promise. I'll just keep you company. Sometimes it's easier to do hard things when someone's nearby." Silence stretched between us, measured in heartbeats. Then, so slowly I almost missed it, she reached for a puzzle piece. Her small fingers picked it up with careful precision, examined it, then placed it in its correct position with a soft click that sounded like satisfaction. Another piece. Another click. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, as she reconstructed her shattered order one piece at a time. The concentration on her small face was absolute, her movements methodical and deliberate. She worked from the outside in, building the frame first before filling the center, a strategy that spoke of routine and practice. When the last piece clicked into place, she sat back and stared at the completed image. A cartoon princess, bright and smiling. Then, for the first time since I'd entered, she turned to look at me. Our eyes met, and something passed between us. Recognition, maybe. Or understanding. The acknowledgement that some people lived in worlds that required translation, and that sometimes, rarely, preciously, you found someone who spoke your language. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Thank you," she whispered, the words barely audible, like they'd been pulled from somewhere deep and rarely accessed. My breath caught. "You're welcome," I managed. She looked at the puzzle again, then back at me, then at the puzzle. Her hands fluttered near her chest, a self-soothing gesture I recognized. You didn't touch." "I promised I wouldn't." "Everyone touches." Her voice carried a weight beyond her years, edged with frustration and resignation. "They say, 'Let me help,' but they don't ask first. They just touch." Understanding crashed over me like a wave. How many well-meaning caregivers had invaded her space with good intentions? How many had tried to help without recognizing that for some children, unwanted help felt like assault? "That must be really hard," I said quietly. "When people don't ask first." She nodded, a jerky movement that sent her braids swinging. "You asked. Because it's your puzzle, your space, your choice." Something shifted in her expression, surprise maybe, or wonder. She studied me with an intensity that felt almost physical, those brown eyes cataloging every detail of my face as if committing me to memory. "I'm Isabella," she said suddenly, "but everyone calls me Bella." "I'm Elena," I replied, smiling despite the fear crawling up my spine. I was definitely breaking rules now. Major rules. The kind that probably got you fired, or worse, in a house like this. "Elena," she repeated, testing the syllables. "You're the new cleaning lady." "I am. I heard you through the door, every Tuesday and Thursday. You hum while you work." She tilted her head. The same song, over and over. Heat crept up my neck. I hadn't realized I'd been humming, hadn't known anyone was listening. It was my brother's favorite song. Humming it makes me feel like he's still, like he's nearby. Is he dead? The blunt question should have shocked me, but I recognized it for what it was. Not cruelty, but directness. The absence of social filters that made some conversations easier and others impossible. "Yes," I said simply. He died 2 years ago. Car accident. I'm sorry. She said it with careful formality, like she'd been taught the appropriate response but didn't quite understand the emotion behind it. Death is permanent. It means they can't come back. That's right. But you still hum his song, so maybe he's still here a little bit. In the song. My eyes burned with unexpected tears. Yeah. Maybe he is. Bella stood up, movements still careful and deliberate, and walked to one of the pristine shelves. She selected a stuffed rabbit, gray with pink ears, and returned, holding it out to me with both hands like an offering. This is Mr. Flops. He helps when I'm sad. She thrust the rabbit toward me insistently. You can hold him, while you miss your brother. I accepted the rabbit with trembling hands, understanding the magnitude of what she'd just done. This child who didn't like to be touched, who lived in carefully controlled order, had just shared her comfort object with a stranger. Thank you, Bella, I whispered. That's very kind. She nodded, satisfied, then returned to her puzzle. She began disassembling it, methodically, piece by piece. And I realized this was her routine. Build it. Take it apart. Build it again. Order. Control. Predictability. The door exploded open. A woman stood in the doorway, late 30s, beautiful in a harsh way, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. Her eyes widened when she saw me sitting on the floor, widened further when she saw Bella holding a puzzle piece without distress. What the hell are you doing in here? Her voice cracked like a whip. I scrambled to my feet, clutching Mr. Flops like a shield. I heard. She was upset. This room is off limits. Completely. That was made explicitly clear. She advanced on me, heels clicking against hardwood like gunshots. Mrs. Chen will hear about this. You're finished. Wait. My voice cracked. Please. I was just trying to help. Help? She laughed, the sound devoid of humor. You think you can help? Do you have any idea who this child is? Whose house you're standing in? Miss Sophia, please, get out, now, before I call security. I moved toward the door, my world crumbling around me. There went my job. My rent. My ability to survive in a city that ate people like me for breakfast. Then, cutting through my spiral of panic, a small voice spoke with crystal clarity. No. Everyone froze. Bella stood beside her completed puzzle, small hands clenched at her sides, her face set with determination I hadn't seen before. No, she repeated, louder this time. Elena stays. She's my friend. She asked first. She didn't touch without permission. She understood about the puzzle. Her voice rose, taking on a desperate edge. She's the only one who understood. Sophia's face had gone pale, then red, cycling through emotions too fast to track. Bella, sweetheart, you don't understand. I understand. Tears spilled down Bella's cheeks, but her voice never wavered. Everyone treats me like I'm broken, like I can't decide things, but Elena asked. She waited. She's the only one who treats me like I'm a person. The words hit like physical blows, each one landing with devastating accuracy. Bella. Sophia tried again. I want Papa, Bella declared, her small body trembling but her voice steady. I want to tell Papa that Elena is my friend and she has to stay. The color drained entirely from Sophia's face. She looked at me with something approaching horror, and I realized, truly realized, what I'd stumbled into. Bella's Papa, Mr. Russo, the man whose name was spoken in whispers. The Mafia boss whose existence I'd been trying not to acknowledge. And I'd just made his daughter speak for the first time in who knew how long, demanding that a rule-breaking maid be allowed to stay. The door at the end of the hallway opened. Footsteps approached, measured, purposeful, carrying an authority that made the air itself feel heavier. A voice like dark velvet and barely restrained violence asked, "What's going on here?" I turned toward the sound, still clutching the stuffed rabbit, and got my first look at Dante Russo, tall, imposing, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than my car, with dark hair silver-threaded at the temples and eyes like winter storms, gray and cold and assessing. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, and his jaw carried the shadow of stubble that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. But it was the aura around him that truly terrified me, the sense that this man had seen death, dealt death, and lost sleep over neither, that he could destroy me with a word, a gesture, a slight inclination of his head toward the security guards who'd appeared flanking him like dark shadows. He looked at Sophia, at Bella, at me. His eyes, those cold, devastating eyes, lingered on the stuffed rabbit in my hands, and something flickered across his face too quickly to identify. "Well?" he said quietly, and the quietness was somehow worse than shouting. "Someone want to explain why my daughter is crying?" The silence stretched like a violin string pulled too tight, ready to snap. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything except stand there clutching Mr. Flops while Dante Russo's gaze moved from his daughter to me with the precision of a predator cataloging prey. "Papa!" Bella's voice cut through the tension, high and desperate. She ran to him. Actually ran. Something Sophia's sharp intake of breath suggested was unusual, and grabbed his hand with both of hers. "Papa, you have to listen. Elena is my friend, and Sophia wants to send her away, but she can't, because Elena understands about puzzles and asking first and not touching without permission and—" "Slow down, Piccola." His voice changed entirely when addressing his daughter, softened, warmed, became something almost human. He crouched down to her level, large hands coming up to gently cup her small face. "Breathe. Tell me slowly." I watched the transformation with something approaching awe. This man, this dangerous, terrifying man, handled his daughter with a tenderness that made my chest ache. His thumbs brushed away her tears with infinite care. His entire focus narrowed to her as if nothing else in the world existed. "Elena came when I was upset," Bella said, her breathing evening out under her father's touch. My puzzle fell. All the pieces everywhere, and my brain got loud and I couldn't fix it, and I was scared. But Elena came and she didn't just grab things. She asked if she could sit. She asked if it was okay. She waited for me to say yes. Dante's eyes flickered to me for half a second, assessing, calculating, then returned to Bella. And then I fixed my puzzle, and she told me about her brother who died, and how she hums his song, and I gave her Mr. Flops, because she was sad. Bella's words tumbled out faster now, desperate to make him understand. "She's the first person who didn't treat me like I was broken, Papa. The first one who asked. You have to let her stay, please." The last word cracked, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Something dangerous passed over Dante's face. A flicker of pain, quickly suppressed, replaced by cold assessment. He straightened slowly, his hand never leaving Bella's shoulder, and turned his full attention to me. I'd never felt so exposed in my life. Those gray eyes dissected me layer by layer, stripping away every pretense until I felt naked and vulnerable and terrifyingly small. I wanted to look away, wanted to run, wanted to disappear entirely. But some instinct warned me that showing fear to a predator only made you more interesting prey. So I held his gaze and waited for judgment. "Your name?" His voice was neutral, revealing nothing. "Elena Rossi, sir." My voice shook despite my best efforts. "And you've been working here how long? 3 weeks? Tuesday and Thursday shifts, cleaning 3rd and 4th floors. This room was off limits." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Yes, sir, I know. I heard Bella crying and I swallowed hard. I couldn't walk away. I'm sorry. I know I broke the rules." "You know what I do?" he asked quietly. "The kind of man I am?" The question felt like a trap. I have suspicions, sir." "Suspicions?" A ghost of something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. "Diplomatic. Your file said you needed this job badly. 2 months behind on rent, no family, no support system. Desperate enough to take a position in a household you suspect is connected to organized crime." Heat flooded my face. Of course he knew. Men like him knew everything. "Yes, sir," I said simply. There was no point in lying. Sophia. He turned to the woman still hovering near the doorway. "Tell me what happened. All of it." Sophia straightened, smoothing her suit with hands that trembled slightly. I I heard noise from Bella's room. When I investigated, I found this woman, Elena, sitting on the floor with Bella. Bella was speaking to her, engaging with her. Sophia's voice cracked. She gave Elena Mr. Flops, Dante. She hasn't let anyone touch Mr. Flops in over a year. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dante's hand tightened on Bella's shoulder, not painfully, but protectively. Explain. I don't know how she did it, Sophia continued, and I heard genuine confusion beneath the defensive anger. Doctor. Morrison has been working with Bella for 18 months. Speech therapy, behavioral therapy, occupational therapy. We've tried everything. Bella speaks maybe 10 words a month, always under duress, always with prompting. But today she gestured helplessly at me, talked to a stranger, a maid she's never even met. Dante's jaw tightened. I watched his throat work as he processed information, watched the calculations happening behind those cold eyes. He looked at his daughter, who was gripping his hand like a lifeline, and watching me with fierce protectiveness. Bella, he said gently. Go with Sophia for a moment. I need to talk to Elena alone. No! Bella's grip tightened. You're going to send her away. I'm not going to send her anywhere, he said, and the promise in his voice was absolute. But I need to have a grown-up conversation. 5 minutes, then you can come back. Promise? Bella's voice was small, frightened. I promise, Piccola. 5 minutes. Reluctantly, Bella allowed Sophia to lead her from the room. She looked back at me 3 times, each glance a silent plea, before the door closed and I was alone with Dante Russo. The silence that followed felt like drowning. He moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at manicured gardens I couldn't see from this angle. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled, too controlled. My daughter hasn't spoken more than a handful of words in 18 months, since her mother died. Each word precise, clipped. The doctors say she has high-functioning autism, that the trauma of losing her mother compounded existing difficulties with social communication. They've tried everything: therapies, medications, specialists flown in from around the world. Nothing worked. I stayed silent, sensing he needed to speak more than I needed to respond. She used to talk, he continued, still facing the window. Not much. Not like other children, but she talked. She'd tell me about her puzzles, about Mr. Flops, about the birds in the garden, and then... His shoulders tensed. Then my wife died, and Bella retreated into silence. Complete silence. For 18 months, I've watched my daughter exist in a world I can't reach, can't understand, can't fix. He turned then, and the raw pain in his eyes made me forget, momentarily, that I was supposed to be terrified of him. And you? A maid I didn't know I'd hired, cleaning floors on a Tuesday afternoon. You walk into her room and within 10 minutes she's speaking, sharing her comfort toy, calling you friend. He crossed the room slowly, each step measured and deliberate, until he stood close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and dark, cedar and smoke. How? My mind raced. My brother was autistic. He died 2 years ago in the accident that killed my parents. But before that, I learned how to be with him, how to respect his boundaries and his needs, how to ask instead of assume. Your brother, Dante repeated softly. He was close now, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Tell me about him. The request surprised me. His name was Marco. He was 12 when he died. He loved trains and prime numbers and collecting rocks. He didn't like to be touched without warning, and he needed things in a specific order, and sometimes the world was too loud for him. My voice cracked. But he was brilliant and kind, and he saw patterns in everything that I couldn't see. And when he was overwhelmed, I'd sit with him, not touching, just present. I'd ask if he wanted to talk about what upset him, or if he wanted silence, or if he needed me to explain something about the world that didn't make sense. I learned his language. Tears blurred my vision, and then he was gone, and I didn't know what to do with all that understanding. It felt useless without him to use it on. Dante studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out and took Mr. Flops from my hands. The stuffed rabbit I'd been clutching throughout this entire conversation like a talisman. Bella's mother gave her this rabbit, he said quietly, examining the worn gray fur. The week before she died. It's her most precious possession. She sleeps with it every night. She won't let anyone else touch it. Not me, not Sophia, not her therapists. He looked up, meeting my eyes. Until you. I didn't know, I whispered. She wanted to help. She saw I was sad, and she wanted to help. Because you understood her first. He handed Mr. Flops back to me carefully, reverently. You saw a distressed child, and instead of trying to fix her, you met her where she was. You asked permission. You waited for consent. His voice dropped lower. Do you understand how rare that is? How precious? I couldn't respond. My throat had closed around words too big to speak. I'm going to make you an offer, Dante said, stepping back and slipping seamlessly into the persona of a businessman making a deal. I want you to work with Bella, not as a maid, as her companion, her friend, whatever she needs you to be. My heart stuttered. Sir, I'm not qualified. I'm not a therapist or a teacher or... You're someone she trusts, someone who speaks her language. That's qualification enough. He moved to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. The pay will be triple what you're making now. You'll have quarters here in the house, close to Bella's room. You'll take meals with us. Your only job is to spend time with my daughter and help her navigate a world that hasn't been kind to her. My mind reeled. Why would you trust me with something so important? You don't know me. I could be anyone. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Dangerous and knowing. Elena Rossi, 26 years old. Degree in elementary education. Abandoned when your parents died and you couldn't afford to finish. Been working minimum wage jobs for 2 years trying to survive. No criminal record. No debt beyond rent. No addictions. No red flags. No one in your life who would miss you if you disappeared. The last word sent ice down my spine. I had you investigated the day you were hired. He continued calmly. Standard procedure. Everyone who enters this house is vetted thoroughly. I know everything about you. Your credit score, your favorite coffee shop, the name of your childhood dog. His eyes locked with mine. And I know you're desperate enough to accept this offer despite understanding exactly what kind of man is making it. He was right. God help me, he was absolutely right. What if I can't help her? I asked, voice barely above a whisper. What if today was a fluke? What if I fail? Then you fail. But you'll try. That's more than most people have given her. He opened the door. One more thing. I looked up at him, this dangerous man offering me salvation wrapped in threat. Bella's world is small right now, safe, controlled. You're going to become part of that world, which means you're under my protection, but it also means you're under my watch. The temperature dropped again. If you hurt her, if you betray her trust, if you use her vulnerability for any purpose other than helping her, there won't be anywhere you can run that I won't find you. Understand? The threat was crystal clear, delivered with the casual certainty of a man who'd made good on such promises before. I understand, I managed. Good. He pulled the door open fully. Bella, you can come back now. She appeared in the doorway immediately. She'd obviously been waiting right outside, and ran to me, wrapping her small arms around my legs with surprising strength. You didn't leave. She breathed against my hip. No, sweetheart. I didn't leave. I looked up at Dante, who was watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. And I'm not going to. Elena is going to be staying with us, Dante told his daughter. She's going to be your special friend. Would you like that? Bella nodded so hard her braids bounced. Yes, please. Then it's settled. He moved toward the door, pausing one last time to look back at us. Sophia will help you move your things from your apartment tomorrow. For tonight, the guest room next to Bella's is prepared. Dinner is at 6. Dress is casual. He left, flanked by his security, and I was alone with Bella and the terrifying realization of what I'd just agreed to. I'd just entered the world of a man who operated outside the law, who commanded fear and respect in equal measure, who could make me disappear with a word. All because his daughter trusted me with a stuffed rabbit and a handful of words. Bella tugged on my hand, Can we do the puzzle again, together this time? I looked down at her hopeful face, at the trust shining in those brown eyes, and felt my last hesitation crumble. Yeah, sweetheart, I said softly. Let's do the puzzle together. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice whispered that I'd just made a deal with the devil. But I couldn't bring myself to care. The guest room was larger than my entire apartment had been. Cream-colored walls, a bed that could fit 3 people comfortably, and a window overlooking gardens that looked like they'd been manicured by artists rather than groundskeepers. Someone, probably Sophia, had already delivered my few belongings from the apartment I'd never see again. 2 suitcases and 3 cardboard boxes containing everything I owned in the world, looking pathetically small against the room's elegant furniture. I sat on the edge of the bed at 5:30, wearing the only dress I owned that wasn't stained or frayed. A simple navy blue thing I'd bought for job interviews that never went anywhere. My hands trembled as I tried to fasten the clasp of my grandmother's necklace, the only piece of jewelry I'd kept after selling everything else to survive. Dinner at 6. Dress is casual. What did casual mean to a mafia boss? I'd seen Dante in that perfectly tailored suit, had watched the way he moved through the world like he owned every inch of it. My dress suddenly felt cheap, wrong, inadequate, in ways that made my chest tight with anxiety. A soft knock interrupted my spiral. "Come in," I called, expecting Sophia or Mrs. Chen with more instructions, more rules, more ways I could fail. Bella pushed the door open. She changed from her white dress into purple pajamas covered in stars, her dark hair now loose around her shoulders. Mr. Flops dangled from one hand. "Hi," she said softly, hovering in the doorway. "Can I come in?" "Of course." I smiled, gesturing to the bed beside me. "You don't have to ask permission to visit, sweetheart." She padded across the carpet and climbed onto the bed with the careful deliberation of a child who thought about every movement. She sat cross-legged, Mr. Flops in her lap, and studied me with that intense focus I was beginning to recognize as her default setting. "You look scared," she observed. The directness still caught me off guard. "A little," I admitted. "This is all very new. New is scary," Bella agreed. "My therapist says that's normal, that our brains don't like new things because they can't predict them." She tilted her head. "Are you scared of Papa?" I chose my words carefully. "Your Papa is very powerful." "That can be intimidating. Intimidating means scary but polite," Bella translated, and I had to suppress a smile. "People are scared of Papa. I hear them. The security guards, the people who visit, even Sophia sometimes, their voices change when he's there." "Does that bother you?" She considered this, her small fingers stroking Mr. Flops's worn ears. "Sometimes. Because they don't see what I see. They see scary Papa who makes decisions and tells people what to do. But I see Papa who reads me stories and checks under my bed for monsters and cries in his office sometimes when he thinks no one can hear." The image cracked something open in my chest. "He loves you very much, I know." She said it simply. "Absolutely. Mama loved me too, before the cancer took her away." Her voice remained steady, clinical almost, but her fingers tightened on the rabbit. "Everyone says I should be sad, that I should cry more. But sometimes I can't cry even when I want to. The feelings are too big and they get stuck." I understood that too well. Feelings don't have a right way to work. However you feel them is okay. That's what Papa says too. She looked up at me. "You and Papa use the same words sometimes, different words than other people." Before I could respond, another knock. This one firmer, more authoritative. "Bella? Elena?" Sophia's voice carried through the door. "Dinner is ready. Mr. Russo is waiting." Bella slid off the bed and held out her hand to me. "Come on, I'll show you the way." I took her small hand, letting her lead me through corridors I was still learning, down a grand staircase I'd only cleaned but never descended, into parts of the house I'd been specifically told to avoid. The dining room was smaller than I'd expected. Intimate, really, with a table that could seat 12 but was set for only 4. Dante stood at the head of the table, still in his suit but with the jacket discarded and his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars I tried not to stare at. He'd been reading something on his phone, but looked up when we entered. His eyes swept over me, a quick, assessing glance that made me painfully aware of every flaw in my appearance. But all he said was, "Elena, please, sit." He gestured to the chair at his right hand. Bella immediately claimed the seat next to mine, and Sophia took the chair across from us with the stiff posture of someone performing an unpleasant duty. A man I didn't recognize began serving food, some kind of pasta with a cream sauce that smelled divine. I waited until everyone else had been served, watching the others for cues about protocol and expectations. "You don't have to wait for permission to eat," Dante said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "This isn't a formal dinner, Elena. Just family. Family." The word felt presumptuous applied to me, but I picked up my fork anyway. Bella had a specific way of eating, separating the different elements on her plate, eating each component completely before moving to the next. No one commented on it, and I noticed the way Dante had positioned himself so he could see her without obviously watching, monitoring without hovering. "How was your afternoon?" he asked his daughter. "Good. Elena and I did 3 puzzles. Then we read a book about butterflies. Did you know there are over 20,000 species of butterflies?" Bella's words came faster when discussing topics she loved. "And they taste with their feet. Their feet, Papa. Can you imagine?" "Sounds disgusting," he said solemnly, and was rewarded with a small giggle. "It's not disgusting. It's efficient. They land on things and immediately know if it's food." She took a precise bite of pasta. Elena didn't know that. I taught her. "Well, then it's a good thing Elena is here to learn from you," Dante said, his eyes flickering to mine briefly. "What else did you teach her?" The dinner continued like that, Bella chattering about butterflies and puzzles, Dante asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than obligatory parental attention, Sophia contributing occasionally with the awkwardness of someone still adjusting to new dynamics. I mostly listened, fascinated by this glimpse into their world. But I felt Dante's attention on me throughout the meal. Not obvious, not intrusive, but present. Like he was learning me the way I'd learned Bella, cataloging responses and reactions, building a profile. After dinner, Bella's bedtime routine began with the precision of a military operation. Bath at 7:30, teeth brushed for exactly 2 minutes, pajamas laid out in a specific order. I watched Dante navigate it all with practiced ease, his large hands gentle, as he helped her into bed and arranged her stuffed animals in their designated positions. "Story?" Bella asked hopefully. "One story," Dante agreed. "Which book?" "The one about the brave mouse." She settled under her covers, Mr. Flops tucked under one arm. Then she looked at me, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "Elena should stay. For the story." Dante glanced at me, something unreadable in his expression. "If Elena wants to stay, she's welcome." I moved to the chair in the corner, the same chair I'd occupied that afternoon, and watched as Dante pulled a worn picture book from the shelf. His voice changed when he read, becoming softer, more animated, adding different voices for each character. Bella's eyes grew heavy within minutes, her breathing evening out into the rhythm of sleep. He finished the story anyway, speaking to the darkness and his sleeping daughter, then carefully tucked the blanket around her shoulders. When he straightened and caught me watching, something vulnerable flashed across his face before the mask returned. "She fights sleep," he said quietly as we left the room, pulling the door closed but leaving it cracked. "Always has. Like she's afraid of missing something." We walked down the hallway together, our footsteps muffled by expensive carpet. I should go to my room, let him return to whatever dangerous business occupied his nights, but he paused at a door I hadn't noticed before, partially hidden in shadow. "Nightcap?" he asked. It wasn't really a question. I followed him into what was clearly his private study, all dark wood and leather, books lining the walls, and a bar cart that probably held liquor worth more than my annual salary. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid and handed me one. "I don't really drink," I admitted. "Tonight you do." He gestured to one of the leather chairs. "Sit. We need to talk." My stomach dropped. Here it comes. He's reconsidered. He's going to tell me this was a mistake. But instead, he settled into the chair across from me and said, "Tell me about Marco's routines. What helped him? What made things worse?" The question surprised me. Why? Because you knew him. You understood him. He took a sip of his drink, eyes never leaving mine. And I'm trying to understand my daughter. So teach me. Something in my chest loosened. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was asking for help, admitting he didn't have all the answers. So I told him. About Marco's need for predictability, about the way unexpected changes could derail his entire day, about the scripts he'd developed for social situations, and how we'd practice them until they felt natural. I told him about sensory sensitivities, tags in clothing, certain textures, sounds that felt like physical pain. Bella has some of those, Dante said quietly. The tags especially, and she can't stand the vacuum cleaner. Too loud, that's why your shifts were scheduled when she was in therapy. Does she wear headphones? Noise-canceling ones? He shook his head. She won't keep them on. Marco wouldn't either at first. He said they felt like pressure. But we found ones with a softer headband, let him decorate them with stickers so they felt like his. I took a tiny sip of the drink. It burned going down but warmed my chest. Maybe Bella would respond to that. Letting her choose them, personalize them. Dante pulled out his phone and made a note. What else? We talked for over an hour about communication strategies and routine cards and the importance of explaining why things were happening rather than just demanding compliance. About the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown, and how Marco had taught me to recognize when he was genuinely upset versus when he was just testing boundaries. She's not testing boundaries much, Dante said, his voice heavy. She's too compliant. It worries me more than defiance would. Learned behavior, I suggested carefully. If every therapist, every caregiver, every well-meaning adult has spent 18 months trying to make her more normal, she's probably learned that compliance is easier than resistance. Something dark passed over his face. I never wanted that. I told them to work with her, not fix her. But she couldn't tell you what was actually happening. She didn't have the words or the trust. I leaned forward. She has them now, or she's starting to. But it means you have to be ready for her to push back, to say no, to assert herself even when it's inconvenient. I want her to push back, he said fiercely. I want her to fight, to argue, to be difficult. I want her to be alive, not this quiet ghost who goes through routines without joy. The rawness in his voice made me ache. She's still in there. I saw her today, the real Bella, excited about butterflies and proud of teaching me something. She's just been hibernating, waiting for it to be safe to come out. And you made it safe. His eyes locked with mine, intense and searching. How? What did you do differently? I didn't try to change her, I said simply. I just tried to understand her. He stood abruptly, moving to the window, his back to me. The muscles in his shoulders were tense beneath his shirt, and I watched him wrestle with something too big for words. Her mother was my arranged marriage, he said finally. Political alliance. Her family needed protection. I needed legitimacy. We didn't love each other. Not at first. But Bella? His voice cracked. Bella changed everything. Suddenly we weren't just playing roles. We were parents. We were a family. I stayed silent, sensing he needed to speak more than I needed to respond. When Carla got sick, Bella was 3. Too young to understand death, but old enough to sense something was wrong. She started withdrawing then, less talking, more routine seeking, more fear of change. The doctor said it was normal, that she was processing trauma. He turned to face me. And then Carla died, and Bella stopped talking almost entirely. And I didn't know how to reach her. Every expert I hired, every therapy we tried, nothing worked. She got more distant, more locked in her own world. Until today, I whispered. Until today. He crossed the room, standing close enough that I could see the silver threading through his dark hair, the lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and impossible choices. You gave me hope for the first time in 18 months. Do you understand what that means? What you've become to me in the space of a single afternoon? The intensity in his voice made my heart race. Sir. Dante, he interrupted. When we're alone, call me Dante. Dante, I corrected, the name feeling dangerous on my tongue. I'm nobody. A maid who got lucky. You're building this up to be something I can't possibly sustain. You're not nobody." He reached out, and for a breathless moment I thought he might touch my face. But his hand fell back to his side. "You're the woman who saw my daughter as a person first, and a problem never. That's everything." The moment stretched between us, charged with something I didn't dare name. Then a phone buzzed. His phone, vibrating against the desk, with urgent insistence. The spell broke. Dante grabbed the phone, glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. Became harder, colder, more dangerous. "I have to take this," he said. "Go to bed, Elena. Tomorrow you start officially. Sophia will go over the schedule." He was already moving toward the door, the phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. But I caught the edge in his voice, the shift from father and man to something else entirely. The boss, the criminal, the predator. I left the study on shaking legs, returning to my too large room, and lay awake for hours replaying the day, the puzzle pieces, Bella's trust, Dante's vulnerability, and the growing certainty that I'd stepped into something far more complicated and far more dangerous than a simple job helping a traumatized child. But as I finally drifted toward sleep, clutching my grandmother's necklace like a talisman, I couldn't bring myself to regret it, not when Bella's voice echoed in my memory. "You're my friend." Not when Dante had looked at me like I'd given him back something he'd thought lost forever. Not even when my rational mind screamed that this would end in tears and blood and heartbreak. I'd made my choice when I opened that door. And for better or worse, there was no going back. 3 weeks passed in a rhythm I'd never experienced before. Structured yet fluid, challenging yet strangely peaceful. My days revolved entirely around Bella, and I discovered that understanding her patterns was like learning a new language, one where silence spoke volumes and small gestures carried the weight of paragraphs. We established routines, breakfast at 8, always the same foods arranged the same way on her plate. Then an hour of what I called free time, but what was really Bella teaching me about her world, the precise way she organized her toy collection, the patterns she saw in everything from carpet designs to cloud formations, the stories she created with her stuffed animals that followed complex rules only she understood. Afternoons were for what Sophia still insisted on calling therapy sessions, though I refused to use that term. We did puzzles, read books, went on walks through the garden where Bella would catalog every bird and insect with scientific precision. She spoke more each day, not constantly, not like neurotypical children, but enough to tell me when something bothered her, enough to share excitement about discoveries, enough to ask questions about the world that often left me scrambling for answers. "Why do people lie?" she asked one afternoon as we sat by the fountain, watching koi fish trace endless circles through the water. I considered the question carefully. Sometimes because they're scared. Sometimes because they think the truth will hurt someone. Sometimes because they want something they can't have honestly. "Papa lies." She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. "People call and he says things that aren't true. I can tell because his voice changes. Gets harder." My stomach tightened. "Your papa's job is complicated. Sometimes he has to say things that keep people safe, even if they're not completely true. Like how you told me the medicine would taste like strawberries, but it really tasted like metal and fake sweetness." I winced. "Yeah, like that. I'm sorry I lied about that." "It's okay." She dropped a piece of fish food into the water, watching the koi swarm. "You lied because you wanted me to take the medicine. You were trying to help. That's different than lying to hurt someone." The complexity of her moral reasoning constantly surprised me. "You're right. Intention matters." "Does Papa's lying hurt people?" The question felt like walking through a minefield. "I don't know, sweetheart. That's something you'd have to ask him." "I can't ask him. It would make him sad." She looked up at me with those two old eyes. "He thinks I don't notice things. But I notice everything. I just don't always know what to do with what I notice." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. The expensive one Dante had given me on my 3rd day, with only 5 numbers programmed in. His was the first. The message was brief. "My office. Now." I have to go talk to your papa, I told Bella. Will you be okay here with Mrs. Chen for a bit? She nodded, already refocused on the fish. Mrs. Chen appeared as if summoned. She probably had been, via some invisible security network. And I made my way through the house to a wing I'd never entered before. Dante's office occupied the entire east corner of the second floor. 2 guards stood outside, their faces blank as they opened the doors without question. Inside, the space was larger than my entire childhood home had been. All dark wood and leather, windows overlooking the estate, and technology that probably cost more than most people's houses. Dante stood at the window, his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. He spoke in Italian, rapid fire and harsh, and even without understanding the words, I recognized anger in his tone. He ended the call and turned. He looked different than I'd seen him before. Tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Tired. Human. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. I sat, hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. He didn't sit. Instead, he paced, 3 steps to the window, 3 steps back, like a caged animal testing the bars. I got a call today, he said finally, from Dr. Morrison, Bella's therapist. My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? She wanted to schedule another evaluation. Said it had been 3 weeks since their last session, and hospital protocol requires monthly check-ins for patients like Bella. He stopped pacing, fixing me with those storm-gray eyes. Except Bella hasn't been to therapy in 3 weeks, because I canceled all her sessions. Oh, Dr. Morrison was concerned. Said that discontinuing established therapy without professional guidance could be detrimental, that Bella needs structured intervention, not just, and I quote, unqualified companionship. His jaw tightened. She suggested that perhaps my judgment was being clouded by desperation and false hope. Heat flooded my face. I never meant to replace her therapists. I thought, she's wrong. He cut me off. In 3 weeks with you, Bella has spoken more words, shown more emotion, engaged more fully with the world than she did in 18 months of therapy. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. But Dr. Morrison isn't wrong about everything. You're not a trained professional. You don't have credentials or certifications or letters after your name. I know that, I said quietly. I never claimed to be, which is exactly why you're better. He pushed off the desk, resuming his pacing. Bella doesn't need someone trying to fix her or normalize her or make her fit into boxes she was never meant to fit in. She needs someone who sees her, understands her, meets her where she is. He stopped in front of me. She needs you. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. But I can't defend that decision to doctors and social services and everyone else who thinks they know what's best for my daughter without giving them something more concrete than she likes Elena better. He ran a hand through his hair, messing it further. So I'm sending you back to school, I blinked. What? Online degree program, child development with a specialization in autism spectrum disorders. Accelerated track. You can finish in 18 months if you're dedicated. He pulled a folder from his desk and handed it to me. Tuition covered. All materials provided. You'll study during Bella's rest time and after she's in bed. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Registration forms, course catalogs, a letter of acceptance to a prestigious university I'd never dreamed of attending. I can't. This is too much. It's not nearly enough, he interrupted. You've given me my daughter back. This is the least I can do. But why? If I'm already helping Bella, why do I need credentials? His expression darkened. Because people are starting to talk. Questions are being asked about the live-in companion with no qualifications caring for the daughter of a man with my reputation. He moved closer, and suddenly I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from him. I need to protect you, and the best way to do that is to make you untouchable professionally. Protect me from what? From social services who might decide Bella needs to be in a facility. From business rivals who might use you to get to me. He hesitated. From questions you shouldn't have to answer. The implication hung heavy between us. Questions about his business. about where his money came from, about the things that happened in the parts of his life I didn't see. Dante, please. The word was quiet, almost vulnerable. Let me do this. Let me give you something that's yours, that no one can take away. An education. A future. Options. I looked at the papers in my hands, at this gift wrapped in protection and guilt, and something else I didn't dare examine too closely. Okay, I whispered. I'll do it. Something in his expression eased. He returned to his desk, putting professional distance between us once more. Good. Classes start next week. Sophia will help coordinate your schedule. I stood to leave, but his voice stopped me at the door. Elena? I turned back. Thank you. He said it simply, but the weight behind the words was enormous. For everything you've done for Bella, for everything you're doing for her, for staying. The vulnerability in his voice made my chest ache. I'm not going anywhere. People always say that. His smile was bitter, until they see who I really am. What I really do. I know what you do, I said quietly. I'm not stupid. The security, the secrecy, the way people react to your name, I know. Do you? He stood, moving around the desk. Do you know about the businesses I control? The people who answer to me? The things I've done to maintain power in a world where showing weakness means death? No, I admitted, and I don't want to know, because it doesn't change what matters. Which is that you love your daughter, that you read her bedtime stories and check for monsters under her bed. That you're trying so hard to be what she needs even when you don't know how. I met his eyes. That's who you really are. The rest is just the rest. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. His hand came up, hovering near my face, and I felt myself lean into the almost touch like a flower toward sunlight. You're too good for this world, he said roughly. Too good for my world. Maybe your world needs more good people in it. It would destroy you. But his hand moved closer, and I felt the brush of his knuckles against my cheek. Feather light, almost imagined. This life destroys everything soft and beautiful. I'm stronger than I look. I know. His thumb traced my cheekbone. That terrifies me more than anything. The moment stretched, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. I should step back, should maintain professional distance, should remember that he was my employer, and I was here for Bella, and mixing those things was a terrible idea. But I didn't move. Neither did he. The door burst open. We sprang apart like guilty teenagers as Sophia entered, her expression tight with disapproval. Sir, the meeting with the Castellano family has been moved up. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Dante's mask slammed back into place, all vulnerability erased. Fine. Have security sweep the grounds again. I want extra men on the perimeter. Already done. Sophia's eyes flickered to me with something approaching accusation. Should Elena be present for this meeting? No. His voice was cold, distant. Elena, return to Bella. Don't let her come downstairs until I give the all clear. The dismissal stung, but I understood it. Whatever business meeting was about to happen, I had no place in it. Didn't want a place in it. I left without another word, returning to find Bella exactly where I'd left her, still watching the koi with rapt attention. Is Papa angry? She asked without looking up. No, sweetheart. He's just busy with work. Angry busy or scared busy? The distinction surprised me. What's the difference? Angry busy means his voice gets hard and he doesn't smile. Scared busy means his voice gets quiet and he checks on me more. She finally looked at me. Which kind? I thought about Dante's expression, about the way he'd touched my face like I might break. Scared busy, I think. She nodded as if this confirmed something. Bad people are coming. He always gets scared busy when bad people come. A chill ran down my spine. How do you know bad people are coming? Because the guards change. More of them. And they wear their guns on the outside instead of hiding them. She said it so casually, so matter-of-factly. It's okay. Papa always keeps us safe. I pulled her closer. wrapping an arm around her small shoulders. Through the window, I could see black cars pulling up the driveway. Expensive vehicles with tinted windows. Men emerged wearing suits that couldn't quite hide the weapons beneath. Bella pressed against my side, her body tensing. "Will you stay with me until they leave?" "Always," I promised. "I'll always stay with you." We sat by the fountain as dangerous men entered the house below, and I wondered, not for the first time, what exactly I'd gotten myself into. But Bella's small hand in mine felt like an anchor, and Dante's words echoed in my mind. "You've given me my daughter back." Whatever came next, whatever darkness lurked in the shadows of this beautiful house, I'd made my choice. I was staying. The meeting lasted 3 hours. I knew because I watched the clock on Bella's wall, counting each minute like a prayer while she played with her blocks and pretended not to notice my tension. The house felt different during those hours, charged with an energy that made the air thick and hard to breathe. Even the security guards stationed outside Bella's door seemed more alert, their hands resting on weapons that were no longer concealed. When the black cars finally pulled away, I felt something in my chest unclench. Bella looked up from her blocks. "They're gone now. Papa will come check on us soon. He always does after the bad people leave." She was right. 10 minutes later, a soft knock preceded Dante entering the room. He looked exhausted, lines around his eyes deeper, shoulders carrying weight that hadn't been there this morning. But when Bella ran to him, his face transformed into something softer. "Hey, Piccola," he scooped her up despite her being almost too big for it. "Were you good for Elena?" "Always good," Bella said seriously. "We watched the fish and played blocks, and Elena taught me a new word, fortitude. It means being brave when things are hard." His eyes found mine over her head, and something passed between us. Understanding, gratitude, something warmer that made my skin flush. "That's a good word," he said quietly. "An important one." He stayed for bedtime routine, reading 3 stories instead of 1, his voice rougher than usual. When Bella finally drifted off, he lingered by her bed, watching her sleep with an expression that made my heart ache. "Dante?" I whispered from the doorway. He looked up and I saw it, the cracks in his armor, the weight of whatever had happened in that meeting. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. I followed him through the house, past security guards who nodded respectfully, into his private study. But instead of pouring drinks or settling into chairs, he led me out onto a balcony I hadn't known existed. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine from the gardens below. The estate stretched before us, manicured lawns and careful lighting creating an illusion of peace. "They want Bella," he said without preamble. My blood turned to ice. "What?" "The Castellanos. They think she's leverage, think they can use her to control me, to force my hand in business dealings." His hands gripped the balcony railing until his knuckles went white. "They suggested an arranged marriage. Bella to their youngest son when she comes of age. Called it an alliance, called it protection. She's 5 years old," I breathed, horror flooding through me. Age doesn't matter to men like them. They see a child as an investment, a tool. His voice was deadly quiet. "They see what I see, that she's my weakness, the one thing in this world I'd burn everything to protect." "What did you tell them?" "That I'd die before I let them touch her." He turned to face me, and I meant it. But threats only work when backed by power. And the truth is, Elena, I'm not invincible. There are people in this world who would love to see me fall, who would use my daughter to make it happen. I moved closer, close enough to touch if I dared. "So what do we do?" "We?" His laugh was bitter. "There is no we in this, Elena. You're a civilian. You shouldn't even be having this conversation. But I am having it, because Bella is my responsibility too." I lifted my chin. "You hired me to help her, to protect her. That doesn't stop when dangerous men come calling. You don't understand what you're saying." He grabbed my shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. "These people don't play by rules. They don't care about innocence or morality or any of the things that make you who you are. If they think you matter to me, if they think you matter to Bella, they'll use you without hesitation." "Then don't let me matter," I said, even as my heart screamed the opposite. "Keep me at a distance. Make sure no one thinks I'm anything more than hired help. It's too late for that." His hands slid from my shoulders to frame my face, and the tenderness in the gesture contradicted his harsh words. "You matter to Bella. You've become part of her world, part of her healing. Which means you matter to me, which means you're in danger. I'm not afraid. You should be." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. "I've done terrible things, Elena. Things that would make you run if you knew the details. I've hurt people, destroyed families, built an empire on blood and fear. That's who I am. That's what I do. And you're also the man who cries in his office when he thinks no one can hear," I whispered. "The man who reads bedtime stories in different voices and checks for monsters under the bed. You're both, Dante. And I see both. You see what you want to see," he said roughly. "You see the good because you're good. But there's so much darkness in me, Elena, so much that would consume you. Maybe I'm tired of being safe." The words escaped before I could stop them. Maybe I'm tired of living small, of accepting scraps, of being invisible. Maybe I want something real, even if it's dangerous. His breath hitched. "Don't say things like that. Why not?" "Because it makes this complicated?" "It's already complicated, Dante. It's been complicated since that first day when Bella called me friend and you looked at me like I'd hung the stars. Elena, I'm not asking for forever. I'm not asking for promises or guarantees or fairy tale endings." My voice shook, but I kept going. "I'm just asking to be here, to help Bella, to be part of something that matters." "You matter," he breathed. "God help me. You matter more than you should. More than is safe for either of us." The distance between us evaporated. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe both of us. Maybe neither. Maybe we were always going to end up here. His lips found mine, and the kiss was nothing like I'd imagined. Not gentle, not sweet. Desperate and hungry, and edged with something that tasted like goodbye. I kissed him back with everything I had, all the loneliness and longing and need I'd been suppressing for weeks. His hands tangled in my hair, mine fisted in his shirt, and for one perfect moment the world narrowed to just this. Just us. Just the truth neither of us wanted to admit. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "This is a mistake," he whispered. "Probably. It puts you in more danger. I know. It changes everything. Good." I opened my eyes, met his storm-gray gaze. Everything needed changing. He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unexpected, so genuine, that it made my heart soar. "You're going to be the death of me," he said. But there was warmth in his voice now. Not the cold distance of before, or maybe I'll be the life of you. I touched his face, tracing the scar through his eyebrow. Maybe we save each other. I don't deserve saving. Neither did I. But Bella saved me anyway, gave me purpose when I had nothing. Maybe it's time to pay that forward. He captured my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "You really want this? Knowing what it means? Knowing the danger, the secrecy, the life you'd be choosing? I want Bella safe. I want to help her grow and heal and become whoever she's meant to be." I paused. "And I want you, all of you. The darkness and the light, the monster and the man. I want to understand why you do what you do. Be part of something real instead of just surviving. Then we do this my way," he said, his voice hardening with decision. "Security around you gets increased. You don't go anywhere without guards. You take self-defense training. You learn the protocols, the safe words, the escape routes. Okay. And you start that degree program. Build credentials that make you untouchable professionally. Give yourself options in case..." He trailed off. But I heard what he didn't say. "In case this ends badly. In case I can't protect you. In case you need to run. I'll do whatever it takes," I promised. He pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me like he could shield me from the world through sheer force of will. We stood like that on the balcony, the night settling around us, and I felt something shift, a fundamental change in the foundation of everything. "I need to tell you something," he said against my hair. "About Bella's mother. About how she really died." My heart stuttered. "You said cancer." I lied. His arms tightened. She was killed. Targeted because of who I am, what I do. They made it look like illness, but I knew. I've always known. His voice cracked, and that knowledge has haunted me every day since. Because I couldn't protect her, I failed her. The weight of that confession settled over us like ash. That's why you're so protective of Bella, I whispered. Why the security, the protocols, the fear? I won't fail again, he said fiercely. I won't lose another person He stopped, the unfinished sentence hanging between us. Another person I love. He didn't say it, but I heard it anyway. You won't lose me, I said, pulling back to look at him. And you won't lose Bella. We're going to figure this out together. Together, he repeated, like testing the word. I haven't had together in a long time. Well, you have it now. I smiled despite everything. You're stuck with me, Dante Russo. Me and Bella and our complicated, messy, probably going to get us killed feelings. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing across my lips. I'm going to protect you, both of you, whatever it takes. I know. And I did. I saw it in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he would burn the world before letting harm come to us. It should have scared me. Maybe it did. But it also made me feel safer than I'd ever felt in my life. 6 months later, I stood in Bella's room watching her practice reading aloud, her voice clear and strong, stumbling occasionally over difficult words but pushing through with determination. The speech therapist we'd brought in, one who actually listened, who worked with Bella instead of on her, sat nearby offering gentle encouragement. Dante entered quietly, leaning against the doorframe with the ghost of a smile on his face. He did that now, smiled more, touched more, let himself be present instead of distant. The darkness was still there, would always be there, but so was the light. Bella finished her page and looked up triumphantly. Did you hear, Papa? I read the whole page without stopping. I heard, Piccola. You were perfect. He crossed the room and kissed her head. Elena's been working with you on those harder words, hasn't she? Every day. Bella beamed at me. Elena's the best teacher, even better than the therapist. No offense, she added to the woman sitting nearby. The therapist laughed. None taken. You're very lucky to have Elena. We all are, Dante said quietly, his eyes finding mine. Later, after Bella was in bed and the house had settled into nighttime quiet, I found Dante in his study. He pulled me into his lap without a word, and I settled against him like I belonged there. Because I did. Somehow, impossibly, I belonged here. In this dangerous house with this dangerous man and this extraordinary child. I got news today, he said, his hand tracing patterns on my back. The Castellanos backed off. They've agreed to honor territorial boundaries and leave Bella out of all business negotiations. I tensed. What changed? Let's just say they received a reminder about what happens to people who threaten what's mine. His voice was dark, dangerous. They won't bother us again. I should ask what he'd done, should demand details, but I'd learned that some questions were better left unasked, some truths better left in shadow. Good, I said simply. I also got your transcript from the university. He shifted so he could see my face. Straight A's. Your professors say you're exceptional. Pride warmed my chest. I had good motivation. Bella adores you, trusts you completely. He swallowed hard. She's happy. Really, truly happy. I didn't think I'd ever see that again. She's an amazing kid. She just needed people who understood her language. And you understand mine too. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Somehow you see past the monster and still choose to stay. There is no monster, I said firmly. Just a man doing what he has to do to protect the people he loves. That's not evil, Dante. That's survival. You make me want to be better, he whispered. To find ways to build instead of just destroy. To leave Bella a legacy that's more than blood and fear. Then let's build it. Together. He kissed me then. Slow and deep and full of promises we couldn't speak aloud. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. I love you, he said. I've loved you since that first day when you sat on Bella's floor and treated her like a person instead of a problem. When you saw past her silence to the brilliant, beautiful girl underneath. When you gave me hope I didn't know I could feel anymore. Tears pricked my eyes. I love you too. Both of you. You're my family now. Family, he repeated, testing the word. Then with more certainty, yes. Family. And in that moment, sitting in his arms in a house built on secrets and danger, I felt something I'd thought lost when my parents and brother died. Home. Not a place. Not safety or certainty or any of the things I'd spent years searching for. But people. Connection. Love fierce enough to survive anything. Bella sleeping peacefully down the hall, dreaming of puzzles and butterflies and a future that was suddenly bright with possibility. Dante holding me like I was precious, like I was worth protecting, like I was his salvation instead of his burden. And me, no longer invisible, no longer accepting scraps, no longer afraid to want something real even when it came wrapped in danger. I'd walked into this house terrified and desperate, willing to do anything for a paycheck. I'd found a child who needed understanding and a man who needed hope, and somehow, impossibly, I'd found myself. The world outside was still dangerous. The Castellanos might be handled, but there would be others, always others, testing boundaries and seeking weakness. Dante's business wouldn't suddenly become legitimate. The shadows wouldn't disappear, but I wasn't afraid of shadows anymore. Because I'd learned that sometimes the most beautiful things grow in darkness. That love doesn't require perfection or safety, or any of the things fairy tales promise. That family is built by choice and commitment, and showing up every single day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Stay with me, Dante murmured against my hair. Always. Always, I promised. And meant it with every fiber of my being. Because this complicated, messy, dangerous, beautiful life was worth staying for. Bella was worth staying for. He was worth staying for. And maybe, finally, I was worth staying for too. The Mafia boss's autistic daughter had spoken her first words to me 6 months ago, calling me friend, giving me purpose, showing me that sometimes the most broken things fit together in ways that make them whole. Now I spoke my own words to her, to him, to the universe that had somehow brought us together. Thank you for seeing me, for needing me, for letting me stay. And in the silence that followed, I could almost hear Bella's voice from that first day, clear and certain and absolutely true. You asked first. You waited. You understood. Yes, I understood. Finally, beautifully, completely.